Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the romantic comedy drama titled Beginners. I know I was kind of putting this one off because when I first saw this movie, it was during the time when my father passed away. And I just did not want to watch another movie to see an old man dying in a movie. I didn't want to see it. But after almost a year since his passing, I managed to get the courage to watch it. And so I did. So back off. No, I'm just kidding. No. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. Anyways, the runtime of this movie is an hour and 44 minutes long. It is written and directed by Mike Mills. And Mike Mills actually says that this movie was actually based on his own personal experience. So this was a pet project that was for him. He based off of this movie is entirely based off of his own personal experiences. And let's just say it's quite riveting. Although I kind of wish this movie could have been better. Alright, so aside from written and directed by Mike Mills, it is produced by Leslie Erdang, Dean Vanek, Miranda de Boncier, Jay Van Hoy, and Lars Knudsen. It is composed by Roger Neal, David Palmer, Brian Reitzel, and Jelly Roll Morton. The cinematography was done by Casper Tuxen, and it was edited by Olivier Budge Coutet. And the stars of the movie are Ewan McGregor, Christopher Plummer, Melanie Laurent, Goran Visnjic, Lennox, Mary Paige Keller, China Shavers, Reynaldo Pacheco, Jennifer Hasty, and let's not forget about Cosmo, who played the most adorable Jack Russell Terrier in this movie. Oh my god. He is just quite the adorable character, and was probably maybe one of the best performers in this movie. I kid you not. So away we go. So the movie centers around late 30s young man Oliver Fields, played by Ewan McGregor. And we cut to 5 years prior to current events. His mother sadly passed away after 45 years of marriage to Hal. His mother, which was only seen in flashbacks, who was played by Mary Paige Keller. She and Hal have been married for 45 years. Sadly, she passed away. And now Hal, at 75 years old, has come out as gay. And is now dating a much younger man named Andy, played by Goran Visnjic. I think I pronounced his name right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. And now that Hal is out of the closet, he can now embrace the life that he always wanted. To be in the relationship with another man. Even though he's like 30 years younger than him. Maybe 35. But hey, he's happy. He's liberated. He's empowered. And he's been given back to the LGBT community. And he is loved by this. And he's found his newfound happiness. A happiness that he has been kept a secret for 4.5 decades. But his happiness is not going to last forever. But then again, what lasts forever? Apparently, he also has terminal cancer. Now, let me point out that I don't have a problem with how Oliver gladly accepts Hal's long time waiting to come out. I mean, it's better late than never, right? And Oliver gladly accepts it. He doesn't cast any kind of judgments towards his father finding new life after his wife's death. Because Oliver always knew that Hal was living a double life. Not necessarily backstabbing or hypocritical, but just keeping it hush. That's what I mean to say. That's what I meant to say. And it's great that he's actually found happiness coming out, coming clean. Why not? Better late than never, like I said. But the problem is, why did it take 45 years to finally spread the word? Maybe I can understand that, yeah, he was still married. And of course, he had a son. And I guess he probably didn't want any negative repercussions for himself or from his son or from Georgia or her strict Jewish family. Well, she's actually part Jewish, and Oliver is only just 1/4 Jewish because Hal is not Jewish. Christian, I suppose. I don't know, Catholic, Protestant, I don't know. But keeping this secret for all these years must have taken a toll on him. I mean, I know when they got married, it was in 1955. And of course, back in the 50s and 60s, homosexuality was still strictly taboo. It wasn't until, I guess, the Stonewall incidents in the 1960s where the LGBT fought back to keep their in, taking down the police, or taking down potential people who want to shut down their only establishment to socialize. And it was actually starting to come more out in the open in the 70s. I mean, when you think about, disco fever, disco music attracted the LGBT community. And they were starting to make progression. In the 1978, somebody by the name of Gilbert Baker created the pride flag, and then came the assassination of Harvey Milk. So, yeah, they were starting to make progression, and then, unfortunately, the AIDS epidemics came in, and then that just sort of set them back. And then, once we've got found some kind of medication to stall the disease from getting worse from people, things started to sort of calm down. By the time we get to the late 90s, early 2000s, and the early 2010s. So, today, it's being a lot more accepted, even though now it's starting to become more embraced and championed. But of course, back in the 50s and 60s, when people were just still very conservative in their mindset and lifestyle, no. I mean, think about Robert Reed, who played Mike Brady from the Brady Bunch. Think of what repercussions he had to go through. And he was never able to embrace his gay lifestyle. And then, of course, he died in 1992 from the big A. I mean, it's not the way to live a life like that. Being kept in the closet for all these years. It shouldn't be a secret. It's really not the way to live like that. So then we go through a series of flashbacks. We can reminisce how life for Hal was difficult as he was struggling with his true identity, and how back then being gay was still very taboo. In fact, Georgia, the reason why she married Hal in 1955 was because she wanted to cure him of his homosexuality, thinking that it's probably just a phase. Only to realize that when she took Oliver to his exhibition, we begin to realize it's not a phase. You see, Hal worked he was a museum director. And he was really hardly ever home. He was really hardly ever in Oliver's life during his childhood. And I know this kind of will upset a lot of people by me just saying that. But you just gotta understand the time period of the setting of when this movie took place. I mean, the movie is developed into like 3 separate plots. We have his childhood, his father's coming out to his untimely death, and then we got a third plot which involves around the romantic relationship between Oliver and his newfound love interest. Oh, by the way, Oliver is heterosexual, but he's also, very flawed and very depressed, and he meets a rather quirky young lady who also is not 100% stable. I'll get more into that subplot. Okay. But I still was able to understand why it was kept a big secret many years later. Once being homosexual was evolving to become more accepting in society. I mean, what was there to hide? I mean, Georgia knew he was gay. And he thought she could get him out of this phase. But then we realized that it wasn't a phase, it was actually something he was committed to. Now, through these flashbacks, we see that the 45 years of marriage between Hal and Georgia were not always the happiest. There was never any abuse, no. There was never any regrets about them getting married. And even though maybe Hal might be might have been openly gay, I mean he still made love to Georgia and had a child, so but then again, when you think about it, most homosexuals are not full blown homosexuals. I mean, Freddie Mercury was gay and yet he had girlfriends too. Elton John, openly gay. He also slept around with girls as well. I mean, it's not like written in stone that when you're homosexual, it's only just people of the same sex. Oh boy, why do I sound like frickin' Dr. Ruth here? Next thing I know, I'll be speaking with a full German accent soon. Okay. But it's just that he wasn't always in their lives. And his marriage to Georgia felt more not necessarily a loving relationship, but more like a wedding buddy. Not a trophy wife. I mean, she too had a job and she was educated as well. But she was more just a wedding buddy. Being the fact that they were married, they never divorced, they stayed committed to each other, but he was living a life. But he was living a life that was kept concealed. There you go. I mean, hey, he loved and cared for Oliver too. There was never any kind of abuse or anything like that. But it was just not necessarily a loving relationship. More like a liking relationship. Maybe there was a little bit of romance, but nothing too lovey-dovey. Okay. I mean, yeah. So, though this movie definitely had potential to further explore the struggles between the 45 years of living a lie and Oliver being caught somewhere in the middle of it, in the end, that was not the primary focus of the movie. And I wanted to explore more of that area. I wanted to even explore more of Hal's coming out, feeling more happy than he has ever been in his life, albeit late in life, and not really having that much time because of age and because of cancer, which is bittersweet. Not completely happy or happy, but just very limited. There you go. The opening scenes in Beginners commences with Hal's death and the coming out revelations 5 years prior to that. Or But it seems that the main focus seems to be mostly about Oliver struggling with the fact that he's 38 years old and now both his parents are gone. And he's gone through a great bout of depression. I mean, okay, he's got a fine life. I mean, he's a graphic designer, and he seems to get along well with colleagues. But he's no life of the party. In fact, he's most of the time quite self-contained and never really interacts, even though he does have his little circle of friends, and seems to somewhat be not necessarily quite dismissive with them, but just really not out in the open. So, and of course he's going through all the motions too, like having to get rid of a lot of his father's personal belongings, and all the stuff that even my family had to go through with my father's death. Canceling all his cards and all his appointments and all his other commitments because he can't be there for them anymore. And although I don't really like to talk too much about it, it's putting a big weight on my shoulders. But I know where he's going through. But even that was still secondary. Oh yeah, and he also inherited Arthur. Who's Arthur? Hal's Jack Russell Terrier, who's like a companion, a buddy to Oliver. And Oliver takes him wherever he goes because he doesn't like being alone. I mean, he'll bark, he'll whine, and Oliver just acquiesces to his requests to take him everywhere. But he has never really found. But the thing is, what also makes him struggle is that while Hal has found true love, albeit late in life, Oliver has never found true love due to his dismissal that he believes that true love is only make believe. So he goes to a party while moping under a Sigmund Freud disguise. Yeah. Yeah, he goes to a party dressed up as Sigmund Freud, and there he meets a young lady named Anna, played by Melanie Laurent. And they're at the party. She could only just write things down at first because she couldn't talk, not because she's deaf, but because she's got laryngitis. I mean, eventually later on, she does talk. And like Oliver, Anna is also battling her inner demons too, as she has never been able to be committed into a serious relationship. And she also has this belief that true love is only told in fairy tales. And Anna, just like Oliver, Anna too is battling her own bouts of depression as well. From what we gather, she left home when she was 16 years old. She doesn't like communicating with her father because apparently any conversations between her and her father leads her more into a deeper bout of depression. And she's also had the contemplations of ending it all for her. Yes, she's also has had thoughts of ending her own life. So this movie is definitely not a giddy, happy kind of movie. It's not tragic, but it's just most of the characters in this movie are struggling with insecurities. Oliver has it, Anna has it, and even though he was a minor character, Andy too also has his own bouts of insecurities as well. As to why is a young man like him dating somebody who's like 30, 35 years older than him, like Hal? Like, why can't he find somebody a little more closer to his age? And he said it was because his father, from what I gather, abandoned him when he came out of the closet. So practically, Hal was more than just a lover to him, but almost like a bona fide father figure. At least that's from what I gather. But even after Hal's death and Andy's going through all the rings of emotions, one time he wanted to, I believe Anna was an aspiring actress, and something like she was leaving Los Angeles to go to New York City. Oliver leaves Arthur at Andy's house to go look for Anna. And then when he comes back, Andy says something along the lines like, "How come you never communicate with me? Never send me a phone call or wondering how I'm doing?" And then, of course, he uses identity bait to shield himself. Why? Is it because I'm gay? I hate it when people use their calling cards as a reason or excuse why people don't talk to the person. I could come up with logical explanations why Oliver never contacted Andy, and I don't think it has anything to do with his LGBT status. I hate status identifications. Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm Asian? Is it because I'm gay? Fuck you. Maybe it's because he's not attracted to you. Hal and him were lovers, and he just didn't want to stay, and he just did not want to be in the way. Or he also has other lives. That's his father, and he loved him very much. And it has nothing to do with him being gay or the fear that he was going to come on to him. I mean, that's bullshit. I hate it when people do that. It has nothing to do with your type of persona, but more to do with you as an individual. I wish people could stop doing that. It makes me sick. So, but then eventually it was revealed that she never left. She never left Los Angeles. So eventually he flies back So he leaves New York City, flies back to Los Angeles, and there they reconcile. I mean, prior to her moving into his place, she's been staying in hotels. Now the question that remains is Oliver and Anna meant for each other? But in the end of the movie, they never really actually ever say. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Because we don't know. Now I know I'm talking a lot about this subplot, but because of the fact that this is the one that seems to be the primary focus, not about Hal's coming out, not about his childhood past, but this is the one that everybody seems to focus on. Making this whole coming out thing from Hal not necessarily an afterthought, but just a secondary subplot. And the people who are in the LGBT community wanted to see a movie about this kind of predicament, they might be a bit disappointed. Maybe not, I don't know. To each their own. I mean, one of the things I like about Oliver is that he gladly accepts the role and he doesn't cast any questions or judgments. He finds his father's happiness and just lets it go. I mean, the guy feels more giddy than a kid at a candy store, and he becomes more empowered and more out there once he begins his relationship with a much younger lover named Andy. But I think, like I said, the real star in this movie has to be that adorable Jack Russell Terrier named Arthur. And he gets added dimension to his character by giving subtitles to represent his inner thoughts to the audience. You know, in some ways, it's like Snoopy. You know how Snoopy used to not necessarily talk, but just let his thoughts do all the talking. But the thing that kind of irks me is that all of Arthur's thoughts is probably Oliver's thoughts, and Arthur is nothing more than just a scapegoat or scape dog to keep the narrative flowing. It would not feel right if these inner thoughts came out of Oliver's mouth, but once the whole idea is injected into the story, it starts to become a bit overkill and tedious. The relationship between Oliver and Anna just seemed to be quite rocky through most of the duration. I mean, Anna's not the most stable person, and Oliver is just a chronic wreck of perpetual depression. I mean, it also doesn't help that the abdominal style that writer-director Mike Mills utilizes when hitting upon topics of his interest become only half-assed and quite infuriating. It seems Mills likes to self-compliment on his little quirks, and the transients of the many scenes are asking for more exploration, only to leave the audience shortchanged. Also, it doesn't help that this movie is unparalleled. I mean, it skips scenes from the primary one involving, the potential relationship between Oliver and Anna, to his relationship with his father and his newfound coming out. And then the most underdeveloped was the flashbacks to his childhood between he and his mother. I would have liked to also know more emphasis on his mother later in life, before her death. She doesn't really get very much development in that either. I would have liked to have seen that too. This movie had a lot of potential, but in the end, and I wanted to like this movie a lot more, but in the end, I ended up feeling very, very disappointed because it was tedious and not very well balanced. Well, Beginners will definitely have its fan base with people either liking it or hating it, which is all right on every cylinder. You know, different strokes for different folks, to each their own. But when told its story in a non-linear fashion, with one scene skipping to another, it just is tedious and confusing. One can't help but get a bit annoyed when it just doesn't have any rhythm going for it. One minute we're at the house scene. Next minute, Oliver and Anna. Next minute, the childhood scene from Oliver. I mean, if you're gonna go non-parallel, have a little subtitles to indicate, like a visual indicator. Don't leave your fan base high and dry. So by the time the film ends, we wait impatiently, wondering if there is any payoff in the end. Which it doesn't. And that's alright. Because when it comes to a relationship, whether it be an old one or a new found, who knows what the future brings? Even Oliver and Anna don't know if this is going to work or not. And for that, I actually say it's quite believable. But in the end, I ended up feeling more disappointed because it's just disorganized. Not very well thought out of how he wanted to switch from one scene to another. It should be provided for us. Not necessarily spoon fed, but give us a little clue as to where you're going. You kind of left us high and dry there, Mr. Mills. And I applaud you for writing something about your past experiences involving your own father and his coming out after your mother's death. But I wanted to know more. So, as much as I applaud you for your story, a big chunk of it was ruined because of your lack of cohesion. So, with all that said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would give Beginners from 2010 a 5. So, I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead, but just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.